A piercing gasp tore through the silence of the first-class cabin as passengers turned their heads, because a furious woman had just grabbed a little black girl by the wrist and yanked her out of her seat. The child stumbled, confused and frightened, while the woman hissed under her breath about people like her not belonging here. But before anyone could react, before anyone could make sense of the cruelty happening only a few feet away, the flight attendant sprinted forward, pale as snow, whispering frantically to the woman that she had just touched the wrong child, because this little girl's mother, the woman quietly walking up the jet bridge, was the owner of the entire airline. That if you believe in kindness, second chances, and treating every human being with dignity, please like, comment, share, and subscribe, and tell us in the comments where you're watching from. The story began hours before that shocking moment, long before judgment, fear, and ignorance collided with truth and humility. On a warm Atlanta morning, 8-year-old Maya Thompson stood at the gate holding her small backpack against her chest. She was a bright, soft-spoken child with big, gentle eyes that reflected both intelligence and innocence. Her skin glowed in warm brown tones, and her curly hair was tied with sky-blue ribbons her mother had carefully fixed before leaving for an urgent board meeting. Maya's mother, Dr. Juliana Thompson, was a brilliant and compassionate woman, a former aviation engineer who had risen from poverty to become the founder and CEO of SkyUnity Airlines, a company built on the principles of inclusion, safety, and human connection. But despite her success and public presence, she carried the humility of someone who had once worked double shifts just to keep the lights on. That morning, Juliana walked Maya to the gate herself, knelt down, and kissed her forehead. She couldn't accompany her daughter on this trip due to a last-minute emergency meeting with international investors, but she arranged every detail with precision and entrusted a senior flight attendant she knew personally. Maya had flown countless times, and she loved it. She loved the soft hum of airplane engines, the clouds outside the windows, the sense of adventure rising in her chest. She also loved first class, the place her mother always booked for her, not out of luxury, but out of safety while traveling alone. But on that day, someone else at the gate had noticed Maya too. Someone who believed the worst of people she knew nothing about. Her name was Danielle Reed, a wealthy, restless woman in her 50s who had spent most of her life chasing status and superiority rather than kindness or truth. The moment she saw Maya approach the priority boarding lane, she frowned sharply, gripping her designer handbag with irritation as though the child had committed an offense simply by existing in the same space. In her mind, first class was a symbol of hierarchy, and she believed only certain people deserved to stand on the upper rungs. When boarding began, Maya stepped onto the airplane with innocent excitement. She found her seat, settled in, pulled out a small storybook her mother had packed, and smiled at the flight attendant assigned to watch over her. The cabin smelled of leather and fresh coffee. Golden sunlight streamed through the large windows, painting warm hues across the quiet space. Everything felt peaceful, calm, and perfect, until Danielle boarded. The moment she entered the cabin, she pointed toward Maya with a face twisted in disgust, muttering loudly enough for surrounding passengers to hear. She insisted the child must have made a mistake, that she had wandered in where she clearly didn't belong. At first, the flight attendant tried to intervene gently, reassuring Danielle that Maya was indeed in the correct seat. But Danielle ignored her, stepped forward, and grabbed Maya by the wrist, pulling her from her seat as if she had the right to dictate who deserved comfort and who didn't. The cabin tensed. A few passengers rose from their seats. Maya's little shoulders trembled as she stared up at the woman who towered over her with resentment. The flight attendant's voice cracked in panic as she begged Danielle to stop, but Danielle refused. She insisted she was protecting the airline from freeloaders. In that horrifying moment, the jet bridge door opened again, and Dr. Juliana Thompson stepped inside. She had rushed to the gate after concluding her meeting early, hoping to surprise her daughter and travel together after all. But when she walked into the cabin, what she saw nearly stopped her heart. Her child, not safe, not comfortable, was standing in the aisle with a tear rolling down her cheek while someone held her wrist like she was an intruder rather than a little girl trying to go home. The flight attendant's voice cracked as she whispered into Danielle's ear, "That's her mother. She owns the airline." The moment the words reached Danielle's ears, her face drained to a sickly white. Her hands trembled. She released Maya instantly, stammering, unable to form a single coherent sentence. Shock washed over her as she realized that the very person she had degraded and humiliated was not only innocent but belonged there more than she ever could. And the child she had wronged was the daughter of the woman whose leadership had built an airline respected around the world. But Juliana didn't shout. She didn't retaliate. She didn't weaponize her authority. Instead, she knelt down beside Maya, wiped her tears, and held her close. The cabin fell completely silent, every passenger witnessing what true strength looked like. With calm authority, Juliana asked for a private conversation with Danielle near the galley. The trembling woman followed, expecting fury, humiliation, or public shaming, but Juliana looked her in the eyes with a quiet intensity and asked the only question that mattered: "Why did you think my child didn't deserve the seat she earned?" Danielle couldn't answer. Not with honesty, not with dignity. She stumbled through excuses, blames, stutters, none of which could cover the truth behind her actions. And in that moment, as Juliana stood tall and unwavering, Danielle's own reflection became clear to her. She had acted with cruelty she didn't even realize she possessed, cruelty that came from years of prejudice, insecurity, and entitlement. Juliana could have removed her from the flight. She could have reported her, banned her, shamed her. But looking at her trembling figure, Juliana saw something else, someone who desperately needed to understand that dignity was not a luxury reserved for a few. Instead, she made a different choice. She told Danielle that Maya was adopted, that she came from a background of unthinkable hardship, and that Juliana fought every single day to give her daughter dignity, safety, and a world where she wouldn't have to experience moments like this. She spoke softly, but her words carried the weight of truth. Danielle broke down in tears. Not because she had been caught, but because for the first time in her life, she felt the sharp sting of her own ugliness. The passengers watched as the two women walked back to the cabin, Juliana composed and strong, Danielle humbled and silent. When Juliana returned to Maya's seat, her daughter wrapped her arms around her and whispered that she just wanted to stay with her for the rest of the flight. And Juliana did exactly that. Throughout the journey, something unusual happened. The atmosphere in the cabin shifted. People became softer, gentler. A passenger sitting across offered Maya a small toy airplane, saying his daughter used to love collecting them. Another offered to switch seats so Maya and Juliana could sit together more comfortably. The entire cabin seemed to agree without speaking that kindness was the only thing that made sense in a world as fragile as theirs, and somehow, through the hum of engines and the glow of sunset through the windows, a broken moment transformed into something healing. By the time the plane touched down, Danielle approached Juliana with trembling hands and tear-filled eyes. She apologized, not defensively, not begrudgingly, but with genuine remorse. She promised to change, to unlearn, to rebuild herself piece by piece. And Juliana, with the grace that had always defined her, nodded, because forgiveness, she believed, was the first step toward a better world. If this story touched your heart, please like the video, share it with someone who believes in kindness, comment your thoughts, and subscribe to support more stories like this. Before the ending, please comment, "Kindness changes the world." And as Juliana carried Maya off the plane, holding her close under the soft glow of the evening lights, she whispered that no matter how many storms the world held, love would always be stronger. Maya smiled, knowing her mother was right. And with that simple truth warming her heart, the world, for a brief moment, felt like a place full of second chances, unexpected redemption, and the quiet hope that maybe, just maybe, people could change.